Hello and welcome back to Chatbot on Robot Republic with me, Josh or Riku. Today I'm joined by another special guest because I am joined by Jędrzej from Act Zero Studios. Hello, how are you?
Hi. I'm very excited to make this interview, and I'm very also. I think you did a good job with pronouncing my name, because I know it's not an easy task for a non-Polish person to call me by name.
Yeah, and it's a very British thing where we look at names and we're just bad with names. I'm bad with names, even British names and whatnot. I'm bad with, but yeah, that sounds really bad. I've just made myself look like a right tit. It's fine. It's fine. But yeah, so we're going to be talking about your really, really awesome kind of interactive visual novel game called Ticket to Europe, which is about a really, really important topic because it's focusing on refugees and the kind of a lot about kind of like the refugee process and why people have to kind of like go through the kind of moving to other countries for a myriad number of reasons, none of which were ever positive, which is such an incredible game. So my first question really is, where did the inspiration for Ticket to Europe come from?
Yeah, it was a long time ago, because as I recall, it was about 2014 or 2015. I'm not really sure at the moment right now, but at that time I read some article about people who were sailing by the boat or some other, I don't know, by rafting or something like this, through the Mediterranean Sea to reach Europe from Africa. And it's it strikes me
Yeah,
emotionally a lot, because I was imagining this situation that you are standing on these beautiful beaches of North Africa, and
yeah,
this is, it looks like paradise, a place when you go to the vacation. And I start wondering, what is your state of mind to have the conclusion that it is better to go in a risky journey by boat uh, through the whole sea? And why is it better for these people than to just stay in this lovely paradise place?
yeah,
And I mean the beach. And it was the moment when I started to feel emotionally engaged in this topic, and I want to understand what's what is behind their decision.
mm,
uh, and not only like answers from newspapers, like there's a war, there are social problems, economics problems, stuff like that, but I really want to understand what's their story, what their backstory, what's their journey, that what's happened to these people, what are their emotions, stuff like that. And
yeah,
that was the beginning of my journey to learn more about refugees. And it was a long journey, because at the moment when I feel this drive to start thinking and learning about them, I know absolutely nothing about game development. I was like uh, I was like freshly graduated student from screenwriting department from the Wood Film School. I was like 25 years old, and I know nothing about making games.
mm,
And but I also, at this time, there was this premiere of this War of Mine game, which I realized, thanks to this game, that really games already matured enough to say to tell the serious, meaningful stories, and this could be a medium to tell these stories to new audiences,
yeah,
because there was a lot of books and documentary movies about refugees, but there was not too much, or almost none, games about it. And I thought that it would be nice if I could make a game about it to reach new audiences
Yeah.
and tell them their stories, because maybe in other case they wouldn't even know their stories.
Yeah, no, and that's such an important thing because obviously gaming has, over the last, 25, 30 odd years, has come on such a long way. You go back to kind of like the 80s when it was, you had people had an Atari and they were playing, Tetris and Space Invaders and
Yeah.
Pac-Man. And then we kind of, over the time, the technology and stuff in games have come such a long way, and we're able to tell such a more broader series of stories and stuff now. And actually, it's really amazing that you've decided to say, actually, this is a story that I want to tell through games. Because, like you say, there are a lot of films about kind of like, people that are kind of like, in the kind of position of refugees across the globe. But actually, it's gaming is a market that is so big and so wide reaching, and allows, I always find with games and stuff, you've become more invested in the kind of stories and stuff because you're
Mhm.
actively playing a part in it, as opposed to a film where you're sitting there going, oh, that was a really good film, I'm just going to sit back and watch it.
Mhm.
And it's such an amazing kind of focus for a game. So kind of thinking more, it's kind of like specifically about the game then. Were there any kind of like specific types of games that you looked at for inspiration? Because the game, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is an interactive visual novel.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, so were there any kind of like types of games? Because when I was looking through it and stuff, I was kind of sitting there going, oh, is it kind of like, does it have kind of like a Life is Strange kind of aspect to it, in that you're kind of like, you make choices that have an impact on people's lives? Was that kind of influence? Or were there other games you sat there and thought that's a really good kind of like idea for the art style or anything like that?
Okay, so your question is about the inspirations, like other
Yeah,
games, yeah?
yeah, from other games.
Yeah, I think that the first visual novel game I played and really enjoyed was 80 Days, made by Inkle, and it got so incredible adventurous vibe. I love the story, and the story was also very complex and rich,
Mm,
and there was so many paths you could play, and I was I played this game like for 3 or 4 times, and at every playthrough I explored new areas, new locations,
yeah,
new parts of the stories, and I was amazed by how rich the story is. So this was the first game that I like, this also this adventurous vibe, which I think is quite good in visual novels. And also the second game I already mentioned, I mean this War of Mine, it's
yeah,
inspired me a lot to focus on a serious topic and to believe that it is possible to make serious topics in video games. um, During the development process, I also find this mobile game called Bury Me My Love. This is,
oh,
did you know that?
I've heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's incredible because this is actually a story about a refugee,
Mm,
and you are playing as a refugee who stays at home, but he's I not remember if she's a girlfriend or wife at this moment, but his partner, your partner, is traveling through Europe, and you are communicating with her via messages in some kind of communicator like Messenger or something like WhatsApp or something like this. Uh, and she's texting you about the things that happens to her during the journey to Europe, and she's asking you questions like what should I do in this situation, and you could provide her with some advices or not, and then depending on your relations with her, she will listen to you or not. But the most incredible thing is that when she decided to make some the decision that she's gonna take this path, then you have to wait because before she managed to progress through this path, and you don't know what's happening with her during this time, and and sometimes you're like messaging her that you're sending her a message that okay, so do this, and she's doing it, and then you wait for a results for a
mm,
few hours, And after a few hours, you start to wonder, okay, is everything okay with her? And then she's silent for 1 day, and there's no notifications on your phone, because you got notifications on your phone from that mobile game
Yeah.
that she sent a message to you. And it's very engaging, because you feel like you are corresponding with a real person in real time. And this moment of silence, this is a great game design, I think.
Yeah.
It strikes me a lot. It's a great game, really. I really recommend it.
Oh,
Uh,
absolutely. I mean, I've not played it myself, but I've seen some kind of bits about the game, and like in prep for this interview, it was one of the kind of games that popped up and was like, oh, this is a kind of like, it's got a similar kind of vibe, and I did a little bit of looking at it, and it looks, the fact that it's all based on real time notifications and stuff, I was like, oh,
yeah,
that's quite an interesting use. Obviously, you know, we've all played mobile games where we get inundated with a bajillion notifications going, oh, you've got more premium currency you can spend, here's the free, and you're just like, oh, go away, shut up. But actually to have a game that uses that as a kind of, almost as a kind of narrative device to kind of like keep you engaged in the
yeah.
story and stuff is really
I
interesting.
think it's brilliant idea, and quite contrarian to the trends in the mobile games,
Yeah.
where you get notifications to get your attention like so many times during the day. And in this game, it's like you're waiting for these notifications because they are so rare. It's
Yeah.
really great, really great. Also, the last one I think that inspired us was also a game called uh, Wanderlust Travel Stories. It's a
Oh,
visual novel about traveling, made by Polish studio, different tales, and a lot of game mechanics and the gameplay itself inspires us a lot with this game. I think they do it in a very nice way. It's very smooth.
oh, brilliant, fabulous, and some really amazing games in there actually as well. I've seen. Actually, Wanderlust is on my ever growing summer backlog of games to play because it looks really cool.
Wanderlust is very like slow pacing game.
Yeah.
It's uh, for some that it is also a problem with this game, that there is no actually any aim for the player, just to discover, to explore. And many players were like, okay, but what's my aim, what my destiny, what I have to do this game, just traveling and sightseeing. It's not very entertaining for many players, but some like this game. uh, but actually we analyze a lot of Wanderlust, and
Yeah.
we have in our game, we have a very specific aim for the
Yeah.
player.
Thinking of the game then, because obviously, you know, you said you graduated from the Warsaw Film Academy and stuff, in a screenwriting role. How have you kind of handled the writing of a really complex topic such as refugees and the kind of, you know, because across the globe at the moment there is kind of like this huge refugees and migrant crisis, is, you know, not just for us here in Europe, because obviously you're over in Poland, I'm in the UK, but it's a big global thing. How have you handled the writing of that? Because it is such a complex issue.
Yeah, well, I handle it with a lot of self-doubt, because I was asking myself at most every stage of this writing process, who am I to tell the stories of refugees? I'm a person who lives in Poland, who didn't meet in person a lot of refugees. In Poland, there are, at the moment I was writing, there were mostly non-refugees because
Yeah.
of the government politics. At this moment, it's changed a lot because of the Ukrainian war, and there is actually so much refugees, but only from Ukrainian. Still, the refugees from different cultures, like Middle East or Africa, are not welcomed in Poland, and nothing changed in that matter here. So I was asking a lot of questions to myself. What's my credits? Why me? Why I can? Why I was so like, I have no right to do this.
Yeah.
I know nothing about it, but I have this drive that I feel so like I have to do this, because before I was writing mostly some entertaining stories, or or some stories based on my life, which was like introspective, sometimes funny, sometimes sad, but some kind of writing a diary, but in a more artistic language. But it was very focused on me, what I was driving, I was writing, and I feel very like this is enough. I have to
Mm.
focus on a word more. I need that because I need that at that moment, and I have this drive, and this drive makes me not to stop working on this idea. And so at the beginning I start to read a lot. Research was crucial here.
Yeah.
And I think at the beginning I read about 5, maybe 10 non-fiction books about refugees, Africa and Middle East. But after these 10 books, I still feel that I know nothing about the topic. It was too less. So I keep reading. I read 20 books, 30 books, 40 books. And this feeling started to grow in me that with every book I read, I'm just realizing that there is so much more knowledge to explore in that topic, that this topic is immense, that I could spend whole my life exploring this topic, and it it would never stop. It would
Yeah.
never end. And so at this point, after I read about 30, 40 books, I decided that this is the moment when I have to start writing, because in other case I would never start to do it. And so um, I was not alone with at this process, because we have a small writers room. There was one reporter called Victor, and my friend Monica, who was a native speaker from UK, and she was also a screenwriter we know from school. And we start to write the first scripts of the game, and I think we wrote like few hundred pages, like 500, maybe 600 pages.
Wow.
And out of this first script, we made a prototype of the game. And with this prototype, we feel that okay, this is the moment when, because we still didn't feel that this is exactly what we intended, because it still was this feeling in us, this insecure feeling that
Yeah.
okay, we only read books and we imagine those situations, but is it real? Is it only our imagination or not? So we decided that we have to go to the refugee camp, Moria, in Greek island,
Wow.
Lesbos. And yeah, and to show this prototype to the refugees, and to have feedback from them, to find out if our writing is honest and true, or it's naive.
Yeah.
And we went only for a few days, like 4 or 5 days to Lesbos, but it was so intense that I feel like I spent there most like a month, something like
Yeah.
this, because it was so incredible, intense experience. And during this time, we showed a prototype to the refugees and told them about the story of the game. And oh my god, it was so embarrassing, because yeah, really, because at this moment I was so lucky, I was so happy that we only have a small portion of the game translated into English, and the
Yeah.
most of the writing was in Polish, because the refugees couldn't read and explore too much of the naive things we put there into the script, into the game. And it was quite hard experience also, because we after coming back to Poland, we were like, oh my god, so we read all of these books, we write all the hundreds of pages, and we are still like very, very amateurs in
Yeah.
this topic, and but it was also was quite inspiring because but I don't know if it's the story is not too long actually, because
It's fine.
I'm just talking and talking. Okay, so it was very also inspiring because what I realized during this time is that I couldn't describe in an honest and true way the relationship between two refugees during the journey. And the first prototype was from the POV of the refugee. Simply because of the cultural differences, I will never be educated enough to know what will two refugees speak to each other when they are alone.
Yeah.
And but I could say a lot about a European protagonist who is struggling with this subject, who wants to know refugees, who knows something about refugees, and then he met them for the first time. And actually, after coming back to Poland from Lesbos, it took a few months to grow this reflection. But after that time, we decided to make this the main topic of our game, and to start from scratch, and to share with the players with these emotions of our coming to Lesbos. And this is the main emotionally, this is the main topic of the game. Like, you know something about refugees, you are a person who is socially engaged in some way,
Yeah.
and you want to go a step further, to really met them, to really confront your expectation with reality. And
Yeah.
this is what the game is about in the final version. Yeah.
That's incredible as well. And actually, like you say, it refugees and the kind of the struggles that they go through and stuff. It is, we often, especially in Europe, very much have a naive view on it, and to actually then kind of go and spend some time with refugees in a refugee camp in Lesbos and stuff, to then come back and actually say, right, we need to scrap everything and come at this from a completely new angle, it must have been such a kind of mind-blowing experience where you're just like, right, we need to completely redraft the whole script, we need to redo the whole game. That must have been so much work, and B, kind of like one of those almost kind of I'm trying to think of the word, one of those moments where you just kind of, those moments of realization where you just think, right, this is the story we're going to tell. We're not going to kind of focus it on something that we're being quite naive with. We're going to completely restructure the whole game. That's such an amazing story. And actually the personal impact that must have had on you and the team writing the game when you went to Le Beau to kind of do that kind of like field work, if you will, to have such a dramatic impact is really, really awesome.
Yeah, it was also a hard decision to cut off the whole script.
Yeah.
But I think that the screenwriting studies help a lot, because screenwriting, they learn you that you have to cut and cut and cut and delete and delete and delete. And it's quite normal in screenwriting that you write the whole script, and then another version of script is like you there may be few sentences in common between these two versions. It's quite normal. Yeah, but I think that if I haven't got that experience with film school, that it would be much more harder to me to cut this scenario, because I will be too much emotionally involved with the time we spent during the writing process.
Absolutely. But and it's I've kind of worked in theatre and
Yeah,
stuff,
but
and it's
you have the choice you make to make the story which is not good, and to make another story which could be good. Yeah. So,
and that's it, is that it's kind of when you're working kind of any form of kind of entertainment media kind of stuff, you need to kind of be like, right, do I want my story to be some kind of non realistic, naive, view, or do I kind of sit there and go, right, well, do you know what, we're gonna chop this big chunk out because it's rubbish, and we'll throw that on the floor and we'll just rework that entire bit, which is so common across, kind of like, I've worked in theatre and stuff, and the same thing happens there. You kind of come up with an idea for a play and you work on it and stuff, and then you get halfway through rehearsals and you just go, well, that's utter rubbish. And you've just been an entire, like, I've worked with directors who have binned an entire act of a play, and I've just been like, oh God.
But you know what, after cutting the whole script, there was this big emotion of relief, and also of freedom, because the decisions, the writing decisions during this first script were wrong decisions, and also there were decisions that we tried to to reshape the story, but the fundamentals were wrong. So anything we could do was also not perfect, at least, at best. And after the cutting the script, I felt that, okay, now I can do it right, and I don't have these obstacles, this walls in my head, that the story was the structure walls in my head, which didn't allow me to go in one direction or the other direction. And it was actually a great feeling. And after some time of writing a new script, I realized that a lot of things that we wrote in the first script, I find a place for it in the final script. But sometimes you have to tell this story, but from a different angle, or something like this, or not the whole story that we wrote, but just a fragment of it. And all this work we done during the first prototype was not wasted. It was like a part of the research, I think, right now.
And that's really, really kind of often the way, kind of with a lot of the game developers I've talked about, they were like early prototypes. We were like, actually, we used assets from the early prototype, be it some of the script or some of the level design or some of the character design stuff, but kind of going from prototype to complete thing, there are huge changes that often occur, which is amazing. And it's really nice to kind of have that, to have you say, do you know what, we had to rewrite the whole script, but there was this real sense of relief that actually we'd gone from kind of writing something that we wanted to work on and how we thought something works to actually something that was more true to life. And that must have been absolutely incredible. Moving on then, because obviously the game, as we've kind of mentioned a few times, is very much a kind of like, I think you described it in the documentation that you sent over for us to kind of peruse, as a dreamlike comic book aesthetic. Two questions. How did you kind of land on that particular style for the game? And then how did you kind of approach the development for the art? Because I've seen some of the screenshots for some of the art and stuff, I think, for the first level that you've got for the game, and some of the stuff that you sent over for us to kind of look at in prep for this, and it looks amazing. It looks so cool. So kind of, how did you land on that kind of specific art style, and kind of like then how did you approach the development?
I think it was quite an intuitive decision, because we decided to make this dreamlike comic book graphics like at the beginning of the development process. It was like quite natural for us, and when I think about it now, this decision is very coherent and coherent with our fundamental thinking about this game, because I think that this game is about portraying people who are suffering some loss and tragedy, but the loss and tragedy is not determining who they are. They are just people who happens to live through a tragic circumstances, and I really care that this game would not be too emotionally heavy,
Yeah.
and to portray refugees as normal people who have normal life and normal expectations, emotions, stuff like that. But at some part of their life, it happens that they live through some tragic events, and I think that comic book graphic, which was like a little bit
Yeah.
cartoonish, uh, it had this impact that this is not actually the tragic story. This is like a little bit of fairy tale maybe,
Yeah.
but it's rather I really like this contrast of thinking about refugees and uh, picturing it with this comic book graphic.
Yeah.
uh, I think it works just to tell this story that this is not only about a tragedy.
Yeah. I mean, from the stuff that we've seen here at Robot Republic, I can second that. It 100% works. Kind of just like from the kind of like the stills and some of the stuff that we've been able to look at and stuff. It adds. I was looking through this when I was going through it. I was genuinely kind of got this realistic yet almost fantastical vibe to the art style and stuff. And then because there were like some sections of dialogue and stuff in the stuff that we've seen as well, that really kind of just paint this, because there is this. I'm not sure what it's like for you guys over in Poland, but for us in the UK, there's always this big media divide around this bizarre, vilifying of refugees especially in Britain, because people are idiots. Don't at me. And it's kind of to see this kind of game look at these people and actually just be like, they're just like everybody else.
Yeah.
They are people who have gone through at some point in their life a tragic event that forces them to actually have to leave their home, and this art style really kind of like blends in quite nicely with that. But portray, it's not, kind of from the bits that we've obviously you've seen the whole game, where the whole game's going. We've only seen a small section of it, but there is this almost like this very nice, hopeful, optimistic view from the bits that we've seen, as opposed to this kind of doom and gloom, pessimistic, oh no, everything's gone to hell, or what are we going to do? There's very nice, kind of almost ethereal positivity to it, which really came across in the stuff we looked at.
Yeah, I think that this game at the beginning, for sure, at the beginning is quite an adventurous game, and I don't want to spoiler a lot, but this tone is changing through the progress. I think that this game at the end is something different than at the beginning, but at the beginning, yeah, you have this optimistic, adventurous tone.
Yeah. Thinking then about just obviously talking about the stuff that we've seen and stuff. I noticed on the thing there was this kind of like, you had all this information about the game, the genre, the art style, and all this other bits. So one thing that really jumped out to me was you had this little bit about replayability.
Yeah.
And on the documentation, you've kind of suggested that the replayability could be kind of like 2 to 3 playthroughs, which kind of got the little cogs in my head turning, albeit slowly. Does that mean that there are kind of within the game, there are going to be certain choices that are going to have impacts on certain characters? Are there going to be certain events that will result in slightly different endings and stuff that's going to kind of like result in this kind of replayability? Because obviously I really want to play this game because it looks really awesome, and if it's got replay, if you've got choices that are going to impact on things, then I'm there for it. I love a branching narrative.
Yeah, actually, yes, you will have a lot of different paths during the playthrough, and the game is structured in a way that there are the main story bits that are quite linear. The whole journey would be like you're going the same road, but what happens during that road, who will you encounter, with who will you travel, and also the endings are different. This changes a lot. So we designed this game in a way that you could play 3 times and have a different playthrough experience. I think that the second time, the first playthrough would be like, you feel that, okay, there's a lot of possibilities. In the second playthrough, you have a chance, probably you will have a completely different journey. You will visit mostly the same places, maybe not all of them, but mostly the same places, but you will meet different characters, you could do different things in that places and stuff like that. And at the third playthrough, I think that sometimes you will see that some part of the gameplay are the same as in the different playthrough, but you could also find a lot of hidden content, because there's a lot of hidden content, which is sometimes very hard to find it.
That's amazing. I'm genuinely really excited to
Yeah,
play this when it comes out.
The script is like 1200 pages long.
Bloody hell.
And I'm rewriting it because of the QA process and stuff like this. I'm adding some stuff to it right now, so I think it will be at the end about 1300 pages, which is about 4 books of regular size. But the one playthrough would be like 10 hours of gameplay, which I think was like 1/3 of the 30% of the gameplay of the content. So I think there is a content for about 35 hours of gameplay, but the single playthrough would be like 10 hours. I think so, because it depends on the path you choose, on how fast you're reading, and how much time it takes you to make choices, because we have this test with some friends, and it's very interesting to see that, because actually this game is, I realize it's very good not only to play alone, but in a group, because when there are 2-3 persons who are playing this and role playing, they are thinking about what kind of a character they are playing. They want they want to achieve different traits or stuff like that, or they have different knowledge about the subject of refugees during the playthrough. During the playthrough, they start to discuss, and these discussions could be very emotional, and I really, it's incredible for me to see that at some point there is some, I don't know, simple dialogue choice, and people could argue for like 15 minutes, and I'm like, okay, this is incredible. If I would write a book or a movie script, then I will probably never see such intense emotions like during these discussions, and this is incredible in writing games.
Yeah, absolutely.
Enjoy that.
I mean, it's why wow, it's one of the reasons why we love games generally so much, and why it's become the biggest part of the entertainment media industry on the planet, because you become the choices, especially games that give you choices and stuff. You do. I've had arguments with friends around games that we've been playing where we've made certain dialogue choices. I'm like, no, don't pick that one. That's the bad decision. Bad things are going to happen if you choose that. And then it turns out I pick what seems like the good decision, and it results in a character dying horribly, like the end of The Witcher 3, which I'm still not over. That's really awesome, actually, as well. And
Oh,
It's
I was a
oh,
QA tester of Witcher 3 at the beginning of my journey
no
to game
way.
dev. Yeah, because I didn't know anything about making games. I sent this my portfolio to some major companies in Poland to become a script writer of games, and nobody even answered me. So I thought that okay, if nobody wants me to write their stories, then I have to make my own company and
Yeah.
make my own stories. But I don't know I know anything about making games, so I have to learn from scratch. And so I applied to this big company who was testing games, and I spent like 4 months testing Witcher 3, and it was I really hate it. It was so mundane and so harsh work.
Yeah.
It's incredibly after these 4 months. I have to like wait 5 years to even play The Witcher 3 because I have this PTSD. Because I know this random parts of the story at every point of the game, and it ruined me the experience so much.
Oh no.
Yeah.
But that must have been
Uh,
so cool though to be able to kind of like I mean, there's a big thing in the industry generally across, especially within AAA at the moment around QA testers and everything else and stuff. And because it is such a brutal job, but it must have been so
yeah.
amazing to play what is pretty much unanimously considered one of the best games of the 2010s.
Yeah.
Kind of like, and to actually kind of like write reports and be like, this doesn't work, and this is a bit broken, and this is a bit dodgy, and that dialogue's a bit iffy. Kind of like be able to give that direct feedback on, and have been a part of that hugely successful game. Oh, that's amazing. I have a friend who works at Rare, and The Witcher 3 is her favorite game.
Mm.
And yeah, I just know if I sit there and say, so I was talking to someone who QA tested that, she's gonna be like, no way. And that was your shout out, Nina. You're
Maybe
welcome.
he fixed one of bugs I find. I don't know. Maybe who knows?
So thinking back, going back to get to Europe, because we could sit here
Yeah.
for the next God knows how long and talk about The Witcher 3, but we won't because we had to talk about your amazing game. You're developing it in Godot, which is I say slightly lesser well-known
Yeah.
game
Yeah.
development engine. It's not kind of like, it's not as big as or frequently used across kind of like spheres as say Unreal Engine or Unity and stuff, but it is, I did a bit of looking into kind of like the Godot engine and stuff because it's a really good engine. How did you come to the decision that we're going to use the Godot engine and not something like Unity or Unreal?
Okay, you know what? Actually, I'm not a very technical person, so because you sent me the ideas for questions before, so I asked this question to Maciej Stańczyk, who is a CTO of our company and also a game designer of Tickets to Europe. He answered for it. So let me just read his answer, maybe because that would be an honest way for me to answer this question. So here's the Maciej answer. It suited our needs the best. It's extremely lightweight and easy to use, and it has everything that a 2D game might need, although we do have some small 3D elements in our game. So there was no reason to bust out something heavier like Unity. It is also open source, which does align with our own views of making game development more accessible to the people, embracing it as a collective effort instead of rigid patents kept behind closed doors. Finally, it being completely free is a nice bonus as well.
Oh, well, thank you very much to your CTO and lead developer, Maciej, there, because that was an amazing response. Because it is, I did a bit of research and I was looking at it and I was like, actually, like I looked at some kind of like the types of games you can build in it, and it's not just for 2D games. You can build some really exciting and interesting
Yeah, I think
big
it's a
3D
very
games
good
as well.
engine. After these 2 years of developing this title, Ticket to Europe, I even can export build of the game by myself, which is a really big thing because I have this allergy to the technical issues. Really.
I'm with you on that one. dabbled in some game design myself, and the second it comes to coding and technicalities, I'm like, no idea.
Yeah.
I'm like, there's someone on YouTube that can talk me through this, I'm sure. Um, that's really cool, and thank you very much for kind of reaching out to your CTO as well, because that's really, really nice to have them included in the interview, even in text-based form. Thinking then about, because obviously we've talked a lot about the game's narrative and the story and the inspiration behind it, and this really incredible game that deals with a really, really important issue. There are also audio features and stuff as well. How have kind of like, I suppose this would be more of a kind of like question for your general kind of like your sound and development teams, but kind of how have you managed the development and the implementation of the kind of audio elements in the game?
Okay. Okay, about the music is that music was also always my tragic love, because I have two guitars for many years, and I always believe that someday I will take them from the corner and learn properly to play them, because I so much love music and I feel music so much, but I have no talent at all. I like during the time of 15 years, I learned like 4 tracks, some simple tracks on the guitar, and that's all. And so I have no talent at all, but this love for music. So it was I was really looking forward to make music with someone, because I think that I feel music a lot, and I know this guy from like, I don't know, 15 maybe 20 years. I met his name is Patrick, and he aka Sandrax. This is his this is how his band, solo band, is named. And I know him from this old page called Last FM.
Oh yeah.
You were scrobbling music there,
Yeah.
and I was like 18, maybe 20 years old, and I was like the biggest scrobbler or something like this of his music. It was very niche. His music was very niche, but I really like it a lot. And I write to him, and we were in contact during these years. And for Patrick, it was also a dream that he would, at some point of his career, make a soundtrack for a game. So we met each other in this project, and I really like this process, because I was telling Patrick a lot about what the scene is about, what are the emotions. I sent him a lot of music references. I thought that could be appropriate in this track, and then the magic happens. Patrick was like sometimes for a week, sometimes for a month, sometimes for 2 days or 3, but he disappears and then he comes back with the track. And I think that 90% of the first drafts of his tracks were the final ones, because he feels so much so well what this music should sound like. And I don't know, I still smiling when thinking about this process, because it was so incredibly satisfying for me, because I have, as I said, I have no talent in music, but I can sense it in some way. And thanks to Patrick, I could really not only sense it, but hear those music intuitions from my soul, let's say so. Yeah, and we made at the end we made about 20 tracks for the game, which is about 90 minutes of soundtrack. And it is very different. Most of the tracks are very different, and it was also a very new thing to Patrick to make music which was connected somehow with the culture of Middle East and Africa, because he mostly did some deep ambient music, very slow, but very sometimes very experimental also.
Yeah.
But very, I think that European based.
Yeah.
And I think this is also interesting because this also tells the story of the game, I mean the music, because the composer is very European, have this European mindset in music, and he started to explore the sounds of Africa and Middle East and try to filter it through his European mindset. Yeah. So I think it also tells the story of the game itself.
Oh, that's amazing. And it's because, you know, like you say, music is so important in things. You know, it's kind of like you can listen to music anywhere in the world. And it, you know, I'm a big believer that music has the ability to kind of bring people really close together and stuff. You know, you meet people that like the similar music to you and stuff, and you find that commonality and stuff. And even if you don't necessarily speak the same language, you've still got a love of that music and whatnot, which is just absolutely brilliant. And it's really nice to kind of talk to kind of like talk about how your music composer kind of worked on kind of merging the kind of European kind of music scene with the kind of more beats from kind of like African and Middle Eastern music. That's really amazing, and I genuinely can't wait to listen to some of it because I can imagine it's just absolutely amazing. Final two questions then, before I let you get back to what I can assume is going to be a very busy day. What have been kind of like, other than having to rewrite and reapproach the entire story from the ground up, what have been kind of like some of the biggest challenges whilst you've been developing the game?
Yeah, I also think that meeting refugees was a big challenge, but I already speak about it. Despite because I was thinking about writing this long script, and meeting with refugees was the biggest challenges. But I think also the big challenge was getting money for it, because we struggle a lot to finance this game, and most of the publishers and investors were like, okay, but it's too ambitious, okay, but it's a mostly text-based game, and or even publishers who already made this kind of games, they were like, they got this allergy reaction to the text-based games, because they also struggled so much to publish them, to make this game, to reach the audience. So nobody wants to publish or invest in this game, and so we spent a lot of our own resources to make this game. But also at some point, and this was the game changer moment, because we received a fund from European Union, which allows us actually to make this game. The budget is okay. We could do it with this budget, but it could be more. It could be more. For example, for me to afford to write this 1,200 pages long script during the 18 months, I go to my home house in a village, and I live there just not to have to pay bills and for rent for an apartment in Warsaw. And this was the only reason I could like fully focus on writing it. Without it, I think it would not be possible with that budget.
Yeah, and that's, you know, kind of a big thing. A lot of the indie developers we've had on the show have all said very similar things, that one of the biggest challenges is kind of either finding a publisher or, you know, funding the game. But it's really awesome actually that, you know, you managed to get some of the funding, or, you know, you were able to get kind of like, you know, some relatively okay funding from the EU. Actually, that's really, really awesome. And it also shows as well that actually they must see that there is a level of benefit in a game like this being produced to kind of, not just raise awareness, but also educate people around this kind of big thing. Because it's across the entirety of Europe. There is a stigma attached to refugees. We have it here in the UK. I've got friends that are in France and Germany and Scandinavian countries that are all in a very similar mindset, that there is this bizarre geopolitical thing around it. And actually a video game is accessible to everyone,
Yeah.
and actually if it tells those stories and changes minds, then it has a significantly positive impact. Final question, then, before we wrap up, what is next in terms for both Ticket to Europe and also for Act Zero Games? Have you got any plans after Ticket to Europe is released to work on another game? What are the future plans? What comes next?
About Ticket to Europe, we plan to launch a Steam page as soon as possible. We are in the process right now. Then to publish a demo also on Steam. Then there's gonna be next Steam Fest. I don't remember. It's gonna be October or November, something like this. So we plan to market our game there, and then the premiere. I'm not sure when, but I think about half a year. It's quite reasonable to think that it's gonna happen in half a year, and after that it depends on the sales of the game, because if there's gonna be a good sale, then we have the idea for a DLC for the game, in where you would play as it's gonna be a different story, but in the same settings, went with a different protagonist, because this was one of the things I really regret the most in this game, that you could only play as a male character. I was thinking about making also a possibility for player to choose if he's gonna play as a male or a female character, but quite soon I realized that there are gonna be so different relationships and stories that's gonna happen to the female protagonist during this journey, that it's gonna be like the whole new game. And the game was already too long, and so, but I have still this want to tell the story also from the female protagonist. So I think the DLC, if ever happens, then it's gonna be from a female perspective. And about the Act Zero games, I just a few days ago I started to write a new script for a new game, because I'm addicted to writing. It's this is the thing that I most loved in life, when I feel most myself. And I ended writing script for a Ticket to Europe like in December. From this time, I'm mostly rewriting it, testing, managing the studio, stuff like that. And this feeling grows in me of okay, I have to do this, but I where is my life satisfaction? And I just have to write and invent new stories, because it drives me in life. So a few days ago I started to write new script for a new game, and the new one because it's so freshly idea, but I think it's gonna be an sci-fi story, and it's gonna be what I like most. I'm not going to spoil anything, but I think it's gonna be a comedy, because I have to change a little bit the genre after focusing on the tragic stories for a few years. And what I like most in this idea is that it's gonna be a story of the protagonist who lives in a future like 100, maybe 150 years from now, and he is very retro engaged in our times.
Nice.
Because he thinks that everything what was good during the history of planet happens when this time when we are living right now, because the things gone so wrong in the future, that he was like, oh my god, it would be so good to live in 2020. And yeah, I think it would be a very funny story.
That sounds brilliant. That sounds brilliant. And then you can then play on this naivety that everything was so great in 2020, and
Yeah.
yet we were all stuck in our homes because of COVID.
Yeah, and maybe in 100 years from now, there would be no homes, for example.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds brilliant. That sounds really funny, actually.
I don't know still, because I'm inventing the story, but I found it very. My brain is buzzing when I think about it, because yeah.
Oh, that sounds brilliant. I'd definitely keep in touch, because we will definitely get you back on the show.
Yeah.
Hopefully to talk more about Ticket to Europe when it releases, and definitely for future projects as well. Jędrzej, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Last little thing for our lovely viewers out there: where can people find more information about the studio, yourself, and this absolutely amazing project?
Yeah. At the moment, we have a fan page on Facebook, which is Act Zero fan page, a Twitter account, which is Ticket to Europe, and soon we will have a Steam page. Yeah.
Awesome. And we're going to make sure that all of those links go down in the descriptions below. So if you do want to have constant updates about this incredible game, please do click on the links in the description, because honestly, it's such an important game that deals with such an important topic in such a beautiful way. Jędrzej, it's been absolutely lovely having you on to talk about this incredible game. Thank you so much.
Thank you also. It was my first interview about this game, and I enjoyed a lot.
Thank you. That means a lot. And to all you lovely people watching, like I said, check out Act Zero Studios and Ticket to Europe down in the links in the comments below. And please do like and subscribe to Robot Republic, because we do have chatbots that come out every other week, and they talk to amazing developers like Andrew here about incredible games. So yeah, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.